Welcome back to Viewpoint. I'm joined now by Steve Georganas, the member for Hindmarsh, the Labor member for Hindmarsh. He's in cold and wintry Canberra, waiting to chat with us. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Pleasure, Chris.
And also from Melbourne, Josh Frydenberg, the Liberal member for Kooyong, who obviously is going to get up early and head to Canberra first thing in the morning. Thanks for joining us too, Josh.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening to you, Steve.
Steve, I want to start with you. You come back, it's the last two sitting weeks of this Parliament. Very likely, of course, according to the opinion polls, the last two sitting weeks of this Labor government, and you're confronted with more leadership speculation, not coming from outside but from within your party. Your own party is very seriously contemplating, yet again, leadership change or a leadership spill. What's your view on this? Has the issue been settled, or are you now turning your mind to what would be the best option, whether it would actually be better to go back to Kevin Rudd?
Chris, can I just say that there's been all this speculation over the last few days, and I think it's speculation and chatter from the media only. Now, I've been through a few leadership spills way back from the Mark Latham days, right through from Beazley to Rudd, and then a couple of others, and I've got to tell you, your phones run hot when it's happening. You have colleagues that ring continuously. I have not received a single call from anyone. The only people that have been ringing me to find out is the media. So I think we heard Kevin Rudd last week say that he's not going anywhere. We heard the Prime Minister say that she's not moving. So therefore, I believe the status quo remains. There will be no leadership challenge. No one's going to step down. No one's going to step up. And I think it makes great media for you guys and for the media and the print media and TV. And this is where all the discussions are taking place.
I don't know that it makes great media. I think the public are heartily sick of it. But you can't get away, Steve Georganas, with saying it's just media speculation, because we all know that there are serious talks within the Labor Party about this, and there has been a dropping off of support within caucus for the Prime Minister. And can I point out to you that your own colleague John Murphy has gone on the record to say that he thinks the party should switch. Now, there's one MP out there publicly saying it's time to switch back to Kevin Rudd.
Well, look, I've got to say that no Prime Minister ever has 100% support of their caucus. There's always one or two people or whatever that perhaps have different views. And that's the case with the opposition as well. I speak to people in the Liberal Party who say to me that Malcolm Turnbull will make a great leader for their particular parliamentary party. It doesn't mean that it's becoming reality. Now, we heard Kevin Rudd last week quite clearly, quite straight out say that he's not going anywhere, and we've heard the Prime Minister say she's not going anywhere either. Therefore, the status quo remains. We've got an election in a couple of months, and we want to be out there selling the positives, as I've been doing all weekend in door knocking and street corner meetings in Adelaide, telling people about the low unemployment rates this week. Some great news this week. We've got 5.5% unemployment rate, which is one of the lowest in the Western world. These are really good stories that we should be out there spruiking at the moment, and that's what I want to be doing. That's what I've been doing. I haven't had any discussions or conversations with anyone about leadership challenges.
Well, I'll come back to both those points in a moment, though, your points about Kevin Rudd and your points about the national political debate. But firstly, we have to go to the latest poll news, because a lot of this has been driven by the polls and Labor MPs' analysis of the polls. And, of course, Galaxy came out today with a poll, and we've seen this sort of thing before, which, of course, shows that on a two-party preferred basis, Labor is heading for an electoral wipeout of 45 to 55 in a two-party preferred basis. And the critical point is, when you turn the leadership question around and you ask people what they would do if Kevin Rudd were leader, suddenly the Labor Party vote bumps up 5 or 6% on the primary vote, and on the two-party preferred basis it comes back to 50-50. 50-50, suddenly there's a possible contest. Now, that is what's driving Steve Georganas, your colleagues, to thinking about this. And Josh Frydenberg in Melbourne, this is the issue that it confronts for the Liberal Party, is that if the government does switch to Kevin Rudd, suddenly the game is competitive. Suddenly what looks like an unstoppable advance into government for the coalition is a big problem for you. You must fear the return of Kevin Rudd.
Well, Chris, firstly, Steve must be living in a parallel universe if he thinks it's only the media who's talking about the celebrity apprentice, namely Kevin Rudd, who's out there every day trying to drum up support for another challenge. I mean, Steve only has to look behind himself in the Parliament to see that the backbench has become a graveyard for Labor's former frontbench ministers. As for Kevin Rudd, well, for us it doesn't matter who runs the Labor Party. It's the same failed Labor record and the same failed Labor policies. And the Australian people have a long memory. They know that Kevin Rudd delivered Grocery Watch and Fuel Watch and the green loans and the overpriced school halls.
See, this is
and
exactly my point, Josh Frydenberg. This is exactly the point. You're now launching into your attack on Kevin Rudd because you're worried Labor will go back to Kevin Rudd, and you know that then the election suddenly becomes a real contest. He is your most feared opponent. That is why the Labor Party is contemplating it. The only reason they're contemplating this is because they know you fear him.
Well, there's no doubt that Kevin Rudd has proven himself to be a good campaigner. He beat, John Howard, who was just a wonderful politician in 2007. But, Kevin Rudd's record as a Prime Minister is appalling. And the first thing he would have to do if he came back was to explain to the Australian people why he undid the successful Howard government policies on border protection. Now, I don't know if Kevin Rudd's going to come back because that's an issue for the caucus. I can tell you Julia Gillard doesn't look like she's about to hand over the keys to the lodge. So we know that the next election, whenever that may be held, on September the 14th, or if Kevin Rudd comes back, he'll probably hold it on a later date. Whenever that election is held, we will be talking about Labor's failed record and our alternative vision for the country. And the election's got a long way to go. It's going to be a close contest, and we're certainly not getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, I want to come back to Steve Georganas and your comment that Kevin Rudd says he's not doing anything. Well, he says he won't challenge Steve Georganas, and we all expect him to stick to that. But he's certainly putting himself out there. I think we'll have some pictures here where we see him always getting out in front of the cameras, always doing a bit of glad handing. It looks like we have at the moment two political leaders campaigning at opposite ends of the country, sometimes intersecting, as they will this week in Canberra. One is Julia Gillard, the other is Kevin Rudd. We have a campaign going on in this country between two potential Labor leaders. Steve Georganas.
Well, Chris, can I just say, at the last 2010 campaign, I had Bob Hawke come to my electorate, and he was absolutely mobbed down Jetty Road, Glenelg, and at the Westlake Shopping Centre. Did that mean that he was going to challenge and come back to politics? No.
That's a bit of a long straw. He's out of politics. But Steve Georganas, can I put it to you then? Do you think that Kevin Rudd is helping your cause by getting out and doing this campaigning? Yeah. Or if, as he says last week, less than 2 weeks ago, he told his colleagues to pull their heads in. Is that what he should be doing, pulling his head in?
Look, Kevin Rudd is a great campaigner. I'm having him in my electorate in a couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to it because he's been to my electorate on a number of occasions and he knows how to campaign, and he is a great campaigner. So I'm looking to get any help I can get, whether it be from Kevin Rudd, whether it be from other ministers, other people that can assist in my campaign. Well, last week I had Craig Emerson in my electorate. He was very recognisable. People were coming up to him and speaking to him as well. It doesn't mean that they're making a challenge, and he's made it quite clear. He said it on a number of occasions last week that he's not going anywhere, and he is doing all that he can as a good Labor Party Member of Parliament to assist in the marginal seats or wherever his assistance is sought. And as I said, I'm looking forward to having him in my electorate in a couple of weeks' time.
I bet you are, Steve. You fought hard to win a marginal seat. You've managed to hang on to it. On current polling, if Julia Gillard stays in the job, you're finished. Your career will be over. Isn't this the crucial decision you have to think about in your mind, and that is the fact that if the party switched to Kevin Rudd, according to the polls, you'd have a much better chance of staying in Parliament?
Well, look, what the polls show today won't be or can't be the polls on election day. Let's get that straight. I have seen many polls over the years. Chris, as you would know, I ran in 1998, I ran in 2001, 2004, 7, 10. And I've seen so many polls come and go showing that I would get annihilated at some elections and actually ended up winning the seat in 2004. In 98, there was polls showing I was 11% behind and ended up with 600 votes in front on the night. Polls are only a snapshot of what's happening today. And I said we've got a really good message to sell. We have got one of the best economies in the world. We've got one of the lowest unemployment rates. We've got one of the lowest interest rates in the world. People are now on average, about $100 better off. That's $400 better off per month under this Labor government with their mortgage than they've ever been.
I just want
These
to put
are all
that to
good
Josh
stories.
Frydenberg. I just want to put that to Josh Frydenberg because the Liberals have run previous campaigns when they're in government strongly on the economy, Josh, and the economic fundamentals are very strong for this government, especially when you talk about unemployment numbers and especially when you compare it to the rest of the world.
That's actually not correct. We bequeath to this government a golden fiscal legacy, zero government debt, 2 million new jobs, a 22% increase in real wages and the highest, the lowest unemployment and inflation.
But it is correct, Josh Frydenberg, it is correct to say that our unemployment numbers are still low, especially compared to the rest of the world, and that our economy has managed to stay out of recession and keep growing at moderate rates.
As you know, Chris, we're very concerned about the debt situation, which has gone from zero government debt to soon to blow out of $300 billion and to go through the debt ceiling, which the government will have to lift. We're very concerned about the interest bill on that debt, which is about $8 billion a year. We're very concerned about the extra tax burden that this government has put on to both big and small business, namely the carbon taxes and the mining taxes, the more than 20,000 new regulations which are strangling small businesses. We want to debate these issues. We've seen more than $100 billion of major investment projects in Australia. In Steve's own state of South Australia, Olympic Dam has been walked away from by BHP and a number of other major projects. This is all because Australia has become a low productivity, high cost country, and the unions are back in control of the workplaces where they're dominating. Industrial disputes have more than doubled under this government. That's the record we want to debate. But the Labor Party, because it's so focused on its internal machinations and the divisions between Kevin Rudd and Julie Gillard's forces, we can't have these debates. We just can't have these debates.
But I do want to go to something the Prime Minister raised during the week, and Steve Georgianis, very interested to get your reaction to this, because as you say, you want to talk about the economy, you want to talk about education, but here's what the Prime Minister had to say about abortion earlier in the week.
We don't want to live in an Australia where abortion again becomes the political plaything of men who think they know better.
Steve Georgianis, isn't that your own Prime Minister there trying to distract the national political debate from the very things you want to talk about?
Look, I think that was at a closed function of Labor Party members. I don't think it was meant for release out in the public.
The vision was released, it was put out by the Prime Minister's office.
Look, I don't know about that, but I know that there was no media allowed into that particular function. But can I say, look, this is a debate that's a very personal debate for people on both sides of the House. I think you know, what was said by the Prime Minister is her views, her very strong views on the subject. And as I said, there's many people on both sides of the House that have strong views.
It sounds
on
like
this particular topic.
It sounds like you wish she didn't try and start this debate.
Well, no. Look, I think there's far more other things that we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the economy, how good it is here in Australia in terms of the rest of the world, where we've got you know, 5.6% or 5.5% unemployment figures compared to double digits around the world. But having said that, I think she's looking at Mr Abbott's track record of what he has said in the past and what he has statements he has made. Look, I think what the debate should be this week
Steve,
is that we should be doing all that we can to get the message out there about the increase in the pension, the low unemployment, the good economy, the 13th largest economy in the world. Now, that is something that's pretty...
We've been the 13th largest economy in the world for some time, and we're a great country. There's no doubt about that, Steve Georgianis. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it, because there are not a lot of Labor MPs happy to put their head up just at the moment. Appreciate your time.
Happy to.
And Josh Frydenberg, thanks for joining us from Melbourne as well. I appreciate it. Both those gentlemen, a long, cold week ahead of them in Canberra. I'll be back after the break with the head of the Business Council of Australia.